at 7.
Voting centers will remain open until 8 o'clock tonight. Good evening, everyone. I'm Carolyn Johnson. Even though Proposition 50 is a statewide measure, it will have national implications. If it passes, it's expected to flip 5 red districts blue, giving Democrats an edge in Washington, D.C. This proposition is in direct response to what happened in Texas. The Lone Star State voted to redraw its maps to gain 5 more Republican seats. One of the areas that we're looking at is District 41, currently represented by Republican Ken Calvert. It stretches across Riverside County and includes Corona, Norco, Palm Springs, and parts of Eastvale. If Prop 50 passes, it would add parts of L.A. County to the district with more Democratic voters. NBC4's Amber Frias is live at a ballot drop-off location for us in Corona, where voters are looking at some big changes ahead if Prop 50 passes. Amber.
Hey, Carolyn. Well, of the voters I've been able to speak with out here, it's 50-50 of those for the proposition and those against. And those people living here in Corona would be directly impacted if the proposition passes. And that's because Corona would no longer be a part of the 41st district, which right now is Republican led by Ken Calvert, as we know. And instead, some of the people living here in Corona will end up in District 35 with Democrat Norma Torres.
That'd be fantastic.
sounds good to me.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
I don't like it because I don't agree with the Democratic Party, and I used to be a Democrat. I do not agree with what they're doing in that party anymore.
Right now, District 41 includes cities like Corona, Menifee, all the way to the Coachella Valley. If Prop 50 passes, the new maps that will be implemented will shift District 41 slightly northwest to include cities like Brea, Downey, and Lakewood. These are cities with more Democratic voters in comparison to the current cities in Riverside County that make up District 41. Under the new map, Republican Ken Calvert would have his district, District 41, split between 40, 48, and 35 districts. Calvert is a senior member of the House of Representatives who was first elected in 1992 and has since served Districts 42, 44, and 43. And during last year's 41st district election, he narrowly beat Democrat Will Rollins 51.7% to 48.3%. Now, we've reached out to him and his team multiple times since last week, but he has not responded or said that he is open to interviews. And in speaking with voters out here, we also found there is still a lot of confusion about Prop 50 and how that will impact our communities. Some voters also telling us that for them, this election is more about President Donald Trump than the California redistricting efforts. For now, live from Corona, Amber Frias, NBC4 News.
Amber, thank you. Let's give you a look now at some of the lines at voting centers. This is in Boyle Heights, where people have been lining up all day to cast their votes in person. You can see it is a long line now. Meanwhile, Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia's district will also change if Prop 50 passes. It would incorporate traditionally red parts of Orange County. NBC4's Hetty Chang live in Huntington Beach now, a city that Hetty leans Republican.
Yeah, Carolyn, you're right, but now we're talking about potentially opposite ends of the political spectrum. To your point, yes, we do have an all-conservative, all-Republican city council here in Huntington Beach, but then you have Congressman Robert Garcia, a gay, progressive Democrat.
When it comes to Proposition 50, coastal conservative Huntington Beach is a tale of two cities. The city council is made up of Republicans who have embraced the nickname of the Magnificent Seven. If Proposition 50 passes, Robert Garcia, a progressive Democratic congressman and very vocal opponent of President Donald Trump, will represent Surf City if he wins re-election. Huntington Beach's mayor is not a fan and got quite emotional as he talked about representation.
I don't trust him. By what I've seen him on the TV, seen him chanting and at these rallies, he's drank the poison of the Democrat Party, and he's all in for the big show and not for what's right. We love America. We love this community, and we want to preserve it. it's important.
If Proposition 50 passes, District 42 would, instead of stretching north from Garcia's home of Long Beach, would stretch south to include coastal cities like Huntington Beach and Newport Beach. Garcia says he would be thrilled about representing a new district, which would have fewer Democrats and more Republicans.
At the end of the day, I know I'm going to represent everyone. When I was mayor, had a lot of Democrats, had Republicans, had independents, and so you know how to represent the entire community. And I think whether you're a Republican in Newport Beach or a Democrat in Seal Beach, at the end of the day, people want you to focus on things that are going to make their life better.
Whether District 42 remains as is or becomes a temporarily new district, now up to the voters to decide.
I think Prop 50 is something that the government is doing to fight back for what Texas is doing. So it's an eye for an eye, is my take. And I'm all for that.
I hope it's a no, and save California, please. We're desperate.
Tell us why.
Get rid of the Democrats. It's as simple as I can say.
We've been talking with people all day long here in Huntington Beach. Some actually had no idea that it is election day, but people who did vote seem to have some pretty strong opinions about why they did. We're live in Huntington Beach tonight. Hetty Chang, NBC4 News.
All right, Hetty, thank you for that. And joining me now is our Conan Nolan and NBC4 political analyst, Dr. Fernando Guerra. Thank you guys for being here. And Dr. Guerra, let's begin with you, because this election, as we've been talking about, would redraw the district lines until the next census in 2030. There are concerns among some that that wouldn't be a truly temporary change. Can you weigh in on that?
No, well, it clearly is a temporary change because it's in the law, it's in the proposition itself. If it passes, it says these lines are only for 6 years, and it turns back redrawing the lines for the 32 elections to the independent commission. And so the law itself, what is going to pass today, if it does pass, creates the independent redistricting commission again.
And you know, we've heard from some voters that they really don't like this idea of going in and changing what was an independent commission.
Yeah, they're in the minority. They're in the minority. I mean, you see the lines there? Holy cow. These are lines for one item on the ballot. And they're turning out, I think this breaks 60%. You know, if you look at Donald Trump's support in this state over the last 3 elections, it's under 40. It's like 38% last time. When Gavin Newsom had his recall campaign, the yes recall him was about 38%. Yep. I think that's what this is going to be. And so, yes, there are people who say, well, listen, we're upset over eliminating the redistricting commission. That was the law. It was in the state constitution. That's why they're voting to change that. The fact of the matter, that is a minority opinion. Most of the people you talk to who are voting on this measure are voting because of one person, Donald Trump. That's what this is all about. Democrats tried to prosecute this campaign as a referendum on the president. I think they're successful.
Where do we go from here, though? What's going to happen? Are other states going to now weigh in, as we've already heard some talking about, redistricting in other states?
That's clear. So Texas started it first to some extent, and now other states are also talking about doing this, whether it's Missouri, Indiana, maybe even Virginia now with the new governor that's a Democrat. But at the end of the day, it might all be even. However, what's really critical is that if this is a wave election, some of those seats that were drawn, especially in Texas, are not as Republican as many of the seats that are being drawn in California are Democrats. Another way of saying that is California is more Democratic than Texas is Republican. So if you have a wave election, if you have a turnout, some of those districts that Texas drew to become Republican are going to stay Democratic.
Can I play off?
Sure.
Yeah. So the districts that Fernando's referring to are border districts that are heavily Hispanic.
Right.
That is a constituency that went for Donald Trump. But so the question is, did the Republican Party buy them or did they rent them? Mm-hmm. And that is also a constituency that is very sensitive to the economy, to inflation, to jobs. And yes, they may have wanted to tighten up the border, but they didn't want their grandfather harassed outside of Home Depot in San Antonio. And so those are the districts you're referring
to. Yeah.
That they think that, well, these are pro-Trump districts. They're going to go Republican. I'm not so sure either. There or in Florida, the Speaker of the House in Florida, the state legislature said, we're going to redistrict and have every Congress member a Republican from Florida. Will that happen? I hope not, because that would that truly would not be representational. But seriously, you have other states that are, Kansas is considering this.
Yeah.
But it's all based on what happened in 2024.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting to follow what happens here and going forward. Thank you both for your time and your expertise on this. We'll be hearing a lot more from you throughout the evening. Remember, polls close in less than an hour. If you are in line before 8 o'clock, you will be allowed to vote. As results come in, we will bring you them right here. Our live coverage on Prop 50 and its impact will begin at 8:30 after the polls close, streaming on the NBC Los Angeles News Channel.